All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dan Vast Show. And for those of you watching on the YouTube channel, I've got a very great special guest today. I've got Stefan James from Project Life Mastery. So I'm super, super happy and honored to have you on the show.
Thanks, man. Looking forward to this.
And so for those of you, I'm sure every single person listening to this and watching this knows who Stefan James is. He has a massive YouTube channel, 611,000, is it subscribers now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Over 600K now, yeah.
Amazing. So soon 1 million, not too far away. But yeah, it's absolutely great. Like, you have been one of my greatest idols since I started, getting into entrepreneurship, especially online business and entrepreneurship, and also my YouTube channel as well. You are one of the people that I looked up to. And I'm sure that for so many people out there listening right now, they know who you are, right? They've watched the videos with, you talking about Amazon, you talking about mastering your life, motivation, success. And you do a lot of other things, which we're going to cover as well in this interview. So I'm super, super happy. And let's just get right into it. So the very first thing I want to ask you is Project Life Mastery. And I was always wondering, how did you come up with that name? Like, what is it? What are we actually mastering?
Yeah. So I love the concept of life mastery, which is improving every aspect of your life. And I've always been, at times, like when I got into self-development when I was 17 years old, I never really was the person that was just after trying to make money, because I learned early on that if you just make a lot of money, but you don't have your health, you don't have your relationships, you don't have a great spiritual life, you don't have, friends and family and, the fulfillment, that's the most important thing. It's not going to really complete you. So I always wanted to make sure that I prioritize those other aspects of life while I was building my business, while I was trying to achieve success, and still have that good foundation from it. And when in 2012, when I started Project Life Mastery, before that, I was making a lot of money doing publishing on Amazon. So I was publishing Kindle books, paperback books, and audiobooks. And I did really well with that, but I wasn't really fulfilled. I was living the 4-hour work week, I guess you could say. And I was financially free at 24 years old, but I wasn't fulfilled in what I was doing. And so I looked at, what's my purpose in life? What's my passion? What's going to make me the most fulfilled? And it always kind of came down to, for me, I love to grow, I love to give, and I love to just improve every aspect of my life. And so I looked at it as a project, I guess you could say, that is this never-ending journey that I was on. That name also kind of came because in my earlier life, I was a dating coach, and I was very much involved in learning how to meet women, improve my confidence, my social skills. And we started a house. There's a book called The Game by Neil Strauss. And he talked about Project Hollywood, which was this house that all of these pickup artists would live in. And they would, it'd be like an environment where they'd go and try to improve themselves so they can meet women. And I formed a similar house in Vancouver called Project Vancouver. And at one point, there was 9 of us that used to live in this house in Kitsilano in Vancouver, and we'd have our goals on the whiteboards in our living room. We'd have house meetings every Sunday, and it was like an accountability group. And so that name, Project Vancouver, Project Hollywood, I kind of got it from that too, and I just kind of combined that with Project Life Mastery.
Amazing. And that's honestly crazy. And I've been seeing that pattern as well. I've seen other dating coaches that have transitioned to, like general life improvement, for example, online business, making money online, all this kind of stuff. But, it's just amazing. Like, you're definitely one of the very first, I think, from what I've seen in this industry, especially on YouTube, if we're talking about the entrepreneur, like influencers, then I think you're one of the first, and certainly one of the biggest. So yeah, that really is amazing. So I've actually, I kind of know about your story, but for those people that are listening and they're not familiar, where did you start? Like, were you always, you always knew you wanted to start an online business, and, maybe it was like what was your family like growing up and things like that, growing up in Vancouver, Canada?
Yeah, I had no idea what an online business was. It wasn't until I read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and it just totally blew my mentality, the fact that you could, because most of us were programmed when we were young from our parents, from school, that you've got to go to university, you got to get good grades, you got to get a good job, you work till you're 65 years old, and then you retire. And when I read The 4-Hour Work Week, it just totally changed that belief system for me, that, wow, you know what? You don't have to go to university. You could make passive income and make money while you sleep and automate different aspects of your life, and you retire young and have freedom. That just totally changed my mindset. And once I discovered that, I was like, I've got to find a way to make that happen. But before that, going back to my childhood, I was very shy. I was very introverted. I had not the best relationship with my father growing up. He was very strict and, a lot of rules and had really high standards and expectations of us. My family was always in the family business. My dad had businesses like making acrylic bathtubs, sinks and showers, to limestone fireplaces, to so many different types of business, curved glass and furniture businesses, a lot of construction related stuff. And so when I was a kid, myself, my brother and sister, we used to always have to work in the family business. And there's one thing that I hated, when I was a kid, I always wanted to spend my summer breaks with my friends or weekends with my friends. But our dad would make us come to work, and we'd have to clean the showroom or sweep the floors or do something to contribute to our family. And I think I got a lot of work ethic and a lot of, good habits, I guess you could say, from that helped me. And when I was, I eventually started to get paid by my dad when I was 17 years old, and worked for him till I was about 21 years old. I kind of worked at other jobs too at different times. But he kind of really threw me into having to learn and figure out things for myself. At certain points, I remember being 18 years old, my dad would go to Greece, and he'd have me have to run the business at 18 years old. And I'd have to collect money from contractors. I'd have to, work with the employees. I had to do the accounting. I kind of had to do everything, do the sales, customer support, everything with the business. So I learned a lot from that, but I wasn't, again, happy. I wasn't fulfilled by it. I could have made great money taking over the business one day, but it wasn't really my passion. So at 21 is when I started my own business as a dating coaching business, because I got into self-development when I was around 17. I made some pretty remarkable transformations in my life by the time I was 19, 20 years old. And there was a community in Vancouver of guys that would all go out to try to learn how to, meet women and improve that aspect of their life. And so as a part of that community, people that saw that transformation that I had. Eventually I had people that came to me, wanted to know how I did it, and was looking for advice and coaching. And so that's why I wanted to start that coaching business, so that I could help people with that. Did that for a few years, struggled, knew nothing about business, knew nothing about marketing, but had to figure it out and learn as I went. That kind of led me to the online marketing world, because I had to learn how to fill up my seminars and get clients through Facebook, through, writing sales copy, through email marketing, through landing pages and all that sort of stuff. So I had to learn those skills. And then I eventually realized that I was trading my time for money, and that I could have created an information product. I could have created information online or products online, and there's more scalability of that. I could automate it, and it could turn it to be a passive income stream. So, from there, got into trying to learn and figure out online marketing, spent a few years dabbling with that, struggled for years, didn't really make that much until I really got into publishing books. And that was my big success back in, I think, 2000, maybe 12 or so. And yeah, or 2010, 2011, actually. But yeah, things have just kind of grown from there. And since I started Project Life Mastery, and I think when you align with what you really love and what your purpose is, it's just like rocket fuel. It just totally changes the game, versus before I was just trying to do things to make money versus actually trying to contribute and add value, which the money always follows when you have that mindset.
Now, how long did you take, when you were maybe stuck in that mindset of you were just trying to make money, and maybe that was causing you to go from failure to failure, maybe not. What I was going to ask you was, did you experience a lot of failures because you were in that mindset of just trying to make money? And then eventually you realized, the whole thing about your life purpose, and then you made that transformation, and then the money came. Is that similar to what happened with you?
Yeah, when I was just trying to make money, I'd make some money, but it wouldn't really last, or it wouldn't really grow and scale. And I think it's because I was largely in the mindset of just trying to get rich quick, that I see a lot of people, they're kind of caught up in that mentality. They just want to try to get paid fast. They want to do it with the least amount of effort, the least amount of money, the least amount of time. And I wasn't really building a business. I was just at one point I was like really into affiliate marketing, and I'd create these little blogs that are 5 pages, and I'd figure out how to rank my little blogs in Google and the search engines. But the way that I was doing that was not sustainable, because I'd rank this little blog or get some traffic and get some sales from that. But then once Google makes a change or an update or whatever it is, my business, my income would be wiped out. So I've had many different failures like that, where it's just always kind of up and down, make some money, lose money. It wouldn't really last. It's not something you could really depend on. And it wasn't until I realized, I got to build an actual business, a brand, something that I put quality into. I'm not just trying to, do the least amount of effort and quality to do this. I've actually got to remove my interests first and foremost. And instead of just being obsessed about me and how much I'm making, what I'm getting from it, I actually have to learn to instead to put other people above my needs. I got to learn how to add value to other people's lives through the content, the products, the services that I'm creating. And when I made that shift, that's when things really changed for me. Because before then I was just doing the bare minimum to get by, to make money, versus, I just trusted if I just do everything I can to really serve people, put out the best possible content, the money will follow. And I found that, I was doing search engine optimization and affiliate marketing, all of that would take care of itself, because, if you have really great content and you're actually sincerely care about people and you're trying to serve them, and they come across your content, they're going to like it. They're going to share it. They're going to tell their friends. They're going to subscribe. They're going to look into what you have to offer. It's just going to all automatically fall into place, versus trying to figure out instead how to manipulate things and try to, get there in the least resistance path possible. So yeah, I think that mindset shift is a really big one, and it really requires a lot of personal growth and just an abundance mentality, I guess you could say, to focus on that.
And I completely agree. And, even with what I'm doing on YouTube, our audience is similar, because it's the same niche, it's the same industry. And what I see so many people doing is they're just trying to get rich quick, kind of like fly by night. They try to put in like 3 days or 4 days worth of effort, maybe even a night or two, for example, trying to find a product on Amazon to sell. And then, they can't find one, or they find one, they do it. They don't even take any courses, right? Because they try to kind of put in the least amount of effort. They're just trying to make money for themselves. And, that's why like 95% of people don't get anywhere. And then they're just, a year later, they're still watching the same videos on YouTube, and they're still kind of like, they have this self-doubt and stuff. And I always talk about this as well. And we'll get to this because I think that you have some great information to share about this as well. The mentality, the mindset, the mental state. I think that, I had a huge realization that everything that I'm doing on YouTube, it might look like I'm trying to teach online business and I'm trying to teach like financial freedom, how to make money online. But in reality, my biggest mission is to change people's mental state, because I think you would agree that it all starts from the mindset, from the mental state. What I was meaning to ask you was, so your first big success was K-Money Mastery, I believe that was the course, right? Mm-hmm. That was your first big success on with a digital product on YouTube. And then from there, it was like a meteoric rise, right?
Yeah. I had success with publishing, and what I did with Project Life Mastery is actually primarily when I started Project Life Mastery, I was sharing my goals, and I was doing a fitness competition at the time, and I was sharing that journey, and I was doing a lot of motivational type stuff too. And I had a following of people that loved that content, but they're like, Stefan, how are you traveling the world? How are you making money online? I want to know how you're doing that. And I was doing also some life coaching at the time too. So a lot of the clients that I was doing life coaching with, they'd want to know how I was making money online. I said, well, I'm publishing books. I built this publishing company. So I teach them that. And I was able to get quite a few people results and success with that. And that kind of made me realize that I could turn that into a course and a product that could then teach people how to publish books themselves. So when I first launched that, I did pretty well with it. It was the first time I really kind of launched an information product, but mostly the success that I had with it was not because I did a great job marketing it. It was mostly because I had an audience of people that I added so much value to that whatever that I came out with, it didn't matter what it was. A lot of them would have bought it because of that relationship that we had established. But yeah, once that program, it really took off, got a lot of people success, and still does to this day. But yeah, that was a big break for me for sure.
Okay. And how long did it take you to get to from failure? And like, how long did you spend in that failure stage? Was it months, years? I believe it sounds like it was years. And then how long did it take you to go from pretty much failure to six figures, and then from six figures to seven figures?
Yeah. I mean, when I first, I was in a failure state for quite a while. I didn't really view it as failure though. It's like, I just kind of looked at it as this was like my growth phase, is that I was, we all have obstacles and barriers and mental beliefs that we have to overcome. And so I had a lot of them that I had to sort through and go through. But, it was years for me when I first built my first business that I barely got by. With that, we ended up getting into a lot of debt because we didn't put money aside for taxes at the end of the year. So we're always running at a negative, working out payment plans with the Canada Revenue Agency to pay off taxes and everything. So, that was a little bit challenging, but during that time, I really learned how to be resourceful. I learned how to figure things out. I learned how to get by. And I was like in a survival state, I guess you could say. But when I first got into learning about online marketing, I'd say about 3 years of just trying different things. And at first I was very stubborn, trying to figure out everything by myself, and I'd be on the message boards and the blogs and everything, trying to figure it out. Eventually I realized I got to invest in myself, and I could get there a lot faster by going through more in-depth, structured step-by-step training that could guide me to learning how to do things a lot faster. But I'd say it was about 3 years at that point. And then when I had my big break with publishing, I think within the first year or so, I made about $100,000, if not the second year. And then from there, I know when I started Project Life Mastery in 2012, it took me about 3 years. So about 2015, where I became a millionaire, like $1 million net worth. And I think I hit seven figures at that point as well. So, it definitely got there a lot faster once I hit the six-figure point, and then, grew from there. But I've also been involved in a lot of different business models too, like Amazon FBA, publishing books, software, coaching, consulting, events, info products. So all these different business models I've been involved with, and some of them I've had success with all of them, but I've also learned to kind of simplify things a lot along the way too. And I think when I learned to focus on one or two things rather than trying to do all these different things at once, that also helped me make that scale and that difference from six figures to seven figures, because I really had to figure out okay, what's working and what's worth continuing and spending my time on, and what are the things that aren't really worth putting that time, energy into, that are actually taking away from my ability to get to that seven-figure point.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I actually saw your post on your YouTube that you posted. It was like a text. It was like paragraphs, and you quoted Gary Keller from The One Thing. And I saw that this morning, and it was like pretty much, you stay committed to one thing. And in your case, you stay committed to your YouTube channel, to your personal brand, growing your personal brand. And then at the beginning, it was the publishing, and then you evolved into the other info products, all the other, different online businesses and income streams. So you have been around, in this industry. Like, I've only been a YouTuber for about, I think, a year and a half now. So, relatively new compared to you. And you've been around for a while, and you've been around not only like building a personal brand, but also internet marketing in general. You've seen the landscape evolve. And how would you say, would you say it's easier right now? Like, how would you say it has evolved since you were starting, and you were doing the Kindle publishing? Like, now, the opportunities are different and things like that. So how would you say it's evolved?
Yeah, I personally look at things as getting a lot easier. There's certain resources, information that is available now that wasn't available when I first got started. There's more and more free information that's available also. But also, all these platforms have grown and evolved in a huge way. When I first got into publishing, like on Amazon, Amazon at that point, they weren't even able to pay me by direct deposit. Like, I had to, wait to get checks in the mail and stuff like that. Like, just, little things like that were a little bit more inconvenient and a little bit harder to do. That side of things have definitely gotten a lot easier. Technology and software and tools at your disposal have gotten a lot easier as well. Even when I look at YouTube, the biggest video that I've done now has got over 4.1 million views. And that type of video to get that many views, like when I started back in 2012, I don't think it would be really hard to get that many views on a video like that. But because YouTube's grown so much more as well, it's changed the game too. So, there's always kind of two sides to the coin. Yeah, it's more competitive now, but I think that competition doesn't matter that much. If you have the right mindset and you're committed and resourceful, you kind of always rise to the top, regardless of what's going on with competition and whatever else everyone else is doing out there. So you get rewarded for the work that you do. You get rewarded for the quality that you put out. But yeah, I've seen it evolve. I think it's easier. I see people now too that, like even, my fiance or some of the students and the clients that I have, how much faster they're achieving success compared to me when I started, of what I had to go through. A lot of people aren't having to go through that. So, I definitely think it's a lot easier for people to get started. There's just a lot more information available. But at the same time, I think it can also be a bit of a detriment too, because sometimes when there's too much information, people get stuck in analysis paralysis. And that's why I think it's also very important that whatever you're going to do, commit to it, be focused, and try to eliminate a lot of the distractions that you might get along the way too.
Yeah, I completely agree. Would you say that online business right now, so for example, and I always make this comparison in my mind because obviously I'm like uploading videos every single day and I'm around in the niche, right? And I talk to my subscribers all the time. And so I know the mentality, but I don't think a lot of people realize that, for example, so when the car, was first invented, I don't know who, I think it was Henry Ford, right? But when Henry Ford invented it was in the early 20th century, right? People were still like investing in companies that created, that manufactured horse-drawn carriages. And they believed that the car was like a fad or a trend. And I think a lot of people, they don't realize like, hey, I think online business, like, and especially like things like e-commerce, which is growing 20% year to year right now, right? Things like that, like in 2018, back in 1917 or whenever, Henry Ford created the car, I don't know the exact year, but, 1937, 1957, now everybody's driving a car, and now it's 2018, everybody's driving a car. Now they're having electric cars. So would you agree that the state of online business, internet entrepreneurship is similar in that way, where right now there's so much opportunity because it is so new still? The internet's only been around for 20, 30 years, right?
Oh yeah, we're still tip of the iceberg with it. It's still very much in its infancy. More and more people are buying things online. Back when, I remember when I got into the internet like 10 years ago, people were skeptical. They were like, they would never use their credit card to buy something online. But now it's just getting a lot easier. I think the older generation is, come around to it as well. The younger generation is growing up with it. So that definitely changes things a lot. There's still I remember reading that in the next 5 or 10 years, there's another billion people that are going to have access to the internet that didn't have access before. So that's, more and more people are getting online, and that's more opportunity, if you're building a business online too. But it's one of those things right now, some of you people that are watching this right now, if you're starting an online business, some of your friends and family might think that you're crazy. And they're like, what? An online business? You're blogging, you're YouTubing. Is that even a real job? Can you make money doing that? And they can't see that yet because they're still very much in that mindset of, the programming of going to school and having a job and that sort of thing. So, a lot of people are not going to understand it in your life. And I went through that as well. But over the next 5 or 10 years, the opportunities that are available online, it's just a matter of time before those same people come around to it and they have that realization that this is now an opportunity to build a career, build a business, and be able to create freedom from it. So, if you're in that phase right now where you're getting that, you're in the early phase. That's a good thing. But eventually it's going to get to that point where it's just everyone and their dog is going to be starting online and building a business and doing that sort of thing. So, yeah, the potential is going to be massive. And that's why I think it's very important to try to get in early and learn as much as you can. Because, the skills that you learn are going to benefit you, not just with your own business, but even if you want to be a freelancer, even if you want to work for a company online, work from home, it's really changing the world in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I completely agree. Do you think that, and this is a question that I ask myself a lot as well, do you believe that everybody should be starting an online business, or that everybody should be an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form, preferably online, because it is so scalable and it's so accessible for someone, just to start within the next, month, 2 or 6 months or 1 year? Do you think that everybody should be starting an online business?
I mean, it kind of depends. I always look at an online business as just a vehicle that allows you to be able to achieve your vision. And I think the first step for anyone is, what do you want out of life? What is your vision? What kind of lifestyle do you want? What are your passion, your interest, your purpose, your mission? And get clear on that, because, I know some people, they want to be a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor, or, they have, that's the vision that they have for themselves. And if that's the case, then there's a different path for you. Maybe that is going to university. Maybe that is, doing whatever so that you can fulfill that vision that you have. But I think for the people out there that want to be able to, their vision is to create financial abundance. They want to have freedom in their life, be able to travel, work from anywhere. I think the online business is the best path for that. So for anybody that, wants to achieve it, I think that's one of the reasons why it's such an attractive idea for so many people, is because that it provides the opportunity to be able to fulfill that vision that people have. But by all means, having starting a business is not easy. I think it also depends on what your values are. People that are entrepreneurs, they value freedom. People that are in the employee mindset, oftentimes they value security. And in order to become an entrepreneur, you're going to have to give up some of that security and comfort, because you're going to have to take on some risks. You're going to have to, be willing to go maybe a few months of putting effort, time, energy, and money into something and not seeing the immediate return from it, and delaying the gratification of that. So there's a different mindset and mentality. And I think that anybody can do it. It's not a matter of ability. It's just a matter of motivation and commitment and determination. And if someone is truly determined and committed to it, they can absolutely make it happen for themselves. And it just, aligning, but I think it's just based on your values, your vision, what you really want out of life. And I think there's different paths for everyone to be able to get there.
Yeah. And one thing that I realized early in my life, like I'm 22. So, a lot of people say I became successful young and all this kind of stuff. I don't listen to it because, there's a quote, it's like flattery will destroy you or something like that. So, but, because I don't compare myself to just the average, like you can't compare yourself to the average 9 to 5 kind of mentality. It's not what you're going for. Right. And one thing that I realized early on in my life, I was working at a big bank in Canada, and one of the big 4 or 5 or whatever. And what I realized was that salaries haven't grown since the 50s or the 60s, like at all much, especially in Canada and in the United States as well. Like salaries haven't grown, but things have gotten a lot more expensive. Housing in Canada is absurdly expensive, right? It's considered absurdly expensive. It's out of reach for most Canadians. It's out of reach, right? In the United States, it's like, okay, it's still possible to get a house, for like relatively a decent price, right? But in Canada, it's like a house is $1 million. That's it. And, in a big city, unless you want to live in Saskatoon or something. But, it's what I've realized early in my life is that, hey, if I'm going to start this and make like 40K, 50K a year, and then eventually make 100K, which is for some reason still the benchmark of success, I realized that there's a big problem in North America. And that's why I went this way, the entrepreneurship way, because I realized that if I become an entrepreneur and then I tell my story and then I, create the personal brand, that way, I'm joining like the awakening, this like wave of entrepreneurship. Do you believe that because of what I just said, salaries aren't growing, right? College is getting more and more obsolete. Do you believe that there's like this, wave of entrepreneurship waking up? And so people like me and you, that's why we have so many people watching us, and, our audiences grow every single year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, entrepreneurship is definitely a huge trend right now. Just that term and that word is attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's attractive to a lot of people, and it's easier today than it's ever been before. I mean, not just with the reasons that I mentioned before, whether it's on YouTube or Amazon, but it's cheaper to start a business than ever before. I mean, if you think about it, our grandparents, if they wanted to start a business, it'd have to be like a local business, a mom and pop store. They'd have to invest tens of thousands of dollars to, they're having a lease and equipment and staff and all that sort of stuff to actually build a business. So traditional entrepreneurship in business is very different than the modern entrepreneur, because the modern entrepreneur is able to leverage the internet, and you can do it very inexpensively. I mean, a lot of the platforms and tools are free. YouTube is free, Facebook is free, Instagram's free. You can build a blog for, less than $100 a year. Like it's just so much easier for anybody to be an entrepreneur. And I think people are kind of coming around to that and realizing that. And then I think it's also being promoted in a big way through Shark Tank and Dragon's Den and Entrepreneur Magazine and, all these different influencers now that are available, and public speakers, and coaches, mentors. And the younger generation, because they're growing up on the internet, they're seeing this, and they're following their YouTuber, when they're a kid, and seeing what they're doing. They want to grow up and be like that person, or they want to grow up and be like that blogger or that Instagrammer. So it's really changed a lot. And again, it's either you kind of get into it now or you get left behind. But I think eventually people will get into it. It's just a matter of time. That's why I think it is beneficial to kind of at least start now and use it to your advantage. Use the internet to your advantage, because anybody can do it, and you don't need to even have a lot of time to do it either, because most people that are doing it, they have a job and they're just doing it, the evenings and weekends, whenever they can, to build their business.
And it's funny that you mentioned those shows, Shark Tank and Dragon's Den. It's the Canadian version of Shark Tank. For those of you that aren't familiar, pretty much it's a show. You've got the sharks, and it's like, these successful business people who are famous, celebrities. There's I don't know, I don't watch it anymore, but it was like Mark Cuban, and then on the Canadian show, on the Canadian version, it's Kevin O'Leary, and these great, successful, famous business people. And pretty much the reason I don't like these shows is because they promote this idea. Like, if you look at most people that come on these shows, they've invested like hundreds of thousands. They've taken out like mortgages, just for their unproven business idea, right? And that's like totally, in my opinion, right? And I might just sound like an ignorant 22-year-old, but in my opinion, it's, these shows are promoting the false version of entrepreneurship, because right now you can start a product, for example, on Amazon. You can start selling a product for, under like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. You don't need to remortgage your house. You don't need to, just take out a bunch of loans, and you don't need to go on a show and try to seek outside like investment, right? And when I was in college, when I was in university here in Canada, it was either you go the traditional way, you do the 9 to 5, you get if you're lucky, you get a job, you wear a suit and all this stuff, and you feel cool. And it's either that, and you get $100,000 into student debt and all that kind of stuff, or you start a startup, and you try to do like the next Uber, the next Airbnb. There was nothing in between. But then when I realized there wasn't in between, and I don't need to start an Uber, I can just, I'll be perfectly happy making $100,000 a year in passive income, from having a brand on Amazon, for example. That's when everything changed for me. And I dropped out of school, and my whole life changed, and I just went that one direction. So I don't like, these views that these shows are perpetuating, you know what I mean? Like Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, because it's not, in my opinion, it's not the only way, it's not the most accessible way for most people. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to take on that level of risk by any means. I often kind of believe some people, they want to invent something, or they have a passion for this, business or a product or whatever it might be. And I think, that's great. But I often kind of recommend to people, let's first get you financially abundant and give you time freedom. Okay. And as you mentioned, you can achieve that through Amazon, or a lot simpler kind of proven model, versus trying to take such a risk and, investing all this money, all this, getting in debt over it and getting investors involved and everything to do that. I think when you're financially abundant and you have that time freedom, and you're be able to be, I guess, financially free, then you could pursue whatever that passion is, or whatever that invention is, or whatever that startup might be, because now you can actually absorb that risk. For me, I don't do anything that's really risky. I always try to mitigate my risk as much as possible. I want to make sure that whatever, the great thing about selling on Amazon is, before you launch the product, you already know whether or not it's going to succeed or not. Because you're doing your research, you can see, the competitors, how much they're selling per day. There's a market demand. You already know it's going to do well, right? You just got to put in the work to market, promote it, and launch it on Amazon. So there's not that much risk involved in that. There's still some, but it's not as much as, trying to launch a product that you've not done any research for. There's none out there that already exist, and you don't know how the market's going to respond to it. So I always, recommend when you're first starting, that's why you learn step by step through someone that can guide you from A to Z, and it's a proven process and system that helps you get results. You achieve financial abundance, you achieve time freedom. Now you can be more risky. You can invest in things, you can start up things, and it's not going to really affect you, if you do fail, because you've already kind of got that base to start off of.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that more and more people should realize that you don't have to start this. You don't have to, completely, risk your life savings or remortgage your house or all this kind of, nonsense that they kind of try to, make people in society think like, hey, that's entrepreneurship. So yeah, and I'm glad that we covered that as well. So now here's the big question. And this is something that I've wondered for a while, actually, and something that I ask probably every single person I interview. What is your life purpose? You've spoken about your life purpose, how you discovered it. What is your life purpose, the giant overall life purpose?
Yeah. For me, my purpose is to grow and give. That's the simplest form of it. I love to grow. I love to improve myself in any way, shape, or form, every aspect of my life. I want to actualize my potential as a human being on this planet. And I know that the reason for that is so that I can contribute something greater than myself. And anytime that I grow, I learn, the more that I do that, it just gives me more to give. And oftentimes when I learn something and it makes an impact in my life, I feel it's my duty to share that with other people so I can help people with that also. But for me, that's the essence of it. I look at everything that I do as a way of fulfilling my purpose. Everything that I do throughout the day, the books that I read, the failures that I go through, the challenges are all opportunities for me to grow and become more. And I can share my story, my experiences, my failures and successes with other people. So, that's what excites me the most.
And you mentioned books. What are some of your favorite books? Like, let's just say maybe top 5, that change your life completely.
Yeah. The books that changed my life, I think they changed my life mostly because the stage of life that I read them at, and I think that's different for everybody. But for me, the books that made a huge influence in my life was Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. Okay, that's just a really great self-development book that covers beliefs and values and just so many really important mental aspects of your life. The Millionaire Fast Lane by MJ DeMarco. That book really influenced me in just understanding that I didn't have to take the traditional route of spending 40 years to get rich. That you can actually achieve financial abundance within a matter of years. That book made a difference. The 4-Hour Work Week really blew my mind of how you can automate your life and systematize things and leverage things and outsource and build an online business. Another book too is called, it's an older, bit of an older book. It's called The 100. And it's the 100 of the world's most influential human beings. And I love to study history. You mentioned Henry Ford, and there's many different examples throughout history, but it's got basically the 100 most influential people in the world are throughout history, and you learn about each one of them, and you get so much by the time you're done reading it. It's a really thick book. You have so many references of success that if all these people were able to achieve greatness, you can as well. It's just so much evidence there that you learn so much from that. And then the last one I'd say, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That also is one that really shifted my thinking, my mindset of, the poor dad and going to school and everything. And that, you got to invest in assets and, have a good financial education.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's funny that you brought up Millionaire Fastlane, because I didn't actually know you read that book. But I did watch some of your videos where you talked about books and things like that. But I don't remember you mentioning that one specifically, but that is one of the books that I promote to my audience so much, just because it changed my own life, like that book. And plus he actually, I don't know if you're familiar, but he wrote a new book called Unscripted. Have you read that one?
No.
Yeah. It's a Millionaire Fastlane, but like on steroids. It's like crazy. Yeah. So, and it's this thick, so it's even bigger than the Millionaire Fastlane. I think you would really enjoy it. But he wrote that one recently, I think a year ago it came out. So it was at the perfect time when I was actually so I was actually cleaning windows. So I quit my bank job. I had enough, and I was cleaning windows back in Ontario. That's where I grew up. I grew up just outside of Toronto. I was cleaning windows in the suburbs, and I was taking the money and putting it into my Amazon product. And so at the time the book just came out, And, for me, it was life-changing. Absolutely. So yeah, no, it's great that you mentioned such an amazing author, such an amazing book. So what are some of your biggest goals in the future? Like your biggest goals that you've set out for yourself, maybe 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, lifetime?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now I'm in a bit of a transition in my life because I just moved away from Canada, moved to Panama. And me and my fiance, we're traveling the world right now. So living the laptop lifestyle and some of those benefits that we have. But the long-term goal is to move to Los Angeles, to get a home there. We've already been looking at different houses there, but we want that to be our home base. That's where we want to settle down, have a family, have kids and everything. Want to also make sure that I, long-term have a home in Vancouver as well. Want to be able to still spend summer times in Vancouver and spend time there too. But, a lot of my goals now are actually a little bit less about me than they used to be. I remember at one point in my life, I had all these goals, but all the goals were just about me, me achieving this amount of money, me building this, me doing this, versus more contribution focused. So I try to now look at my goals in a different way, because I think that a lot of the financial success, for example, follows from the contribution aspect. So a big one for me is, I want to influence millions of people on YouTube. I want to continue that. I have set numbers and goals with that. I want to, help more people build businesses, create freedom. So I have a lot of goals that are more about, if I make an impact in other people's lives, then I know it's going to benefit and follow me. Been also been involved in building schools in Africa, built a few schools now in Kenya and Ethiopia. Went to Ethiopia last year for a school inauguration that I helped build. So I want to scale that up. And my long-term goal is to have built 100 schools, and just really, helping kids that don't have access to a lot of the things that we have access to. Really, when it comes down to just continue to improve every aspect of my life, I believe that you can always take everything to a whole new level. My relationship, as great as it is, can go to deeper levels of love and passion. My health and my body, my energy, as great as it already is, I could have more energy. I can optimize my well-being even further. So, every aspect of my life, I like to have goals for, and I always like to have something that I'm moving towards. But I think the biggest ones that excite me now are more contribution focused, just reaching and helping more people, creating more programs and courses that can help people in every aspect of their life as well. And that's my ultimate goal with Project Life Mastery, is to help people with their health, with their mindset, with their relationships, with their business, finance, and spiritual life, and having that balance in every aspect of life.
Amazing. So what were some of your most life-changing moments? And I know this is a pretty deep question, and I think it might be hard to come up with some instant answers, because I asked the same question to Daniel DiPiazza yesterday, and he was like, wow, that's kind of throws you off. But, if you've got something just off the top of your head there, your most life-changing moments.
Yeah, I'd say when I was 17 years old, I was shy, I was depressed, I was, I had suicidal thoughts. I was just really, really dark place in my life. I was addicted to video games, and I used to skip a lot of school. I used to hate going to school, barely graduated. I was always like a C- student, just kind of getting by. And I was in love with this girl that I had met online through this online game. And, she broke my heart. And long story short, it's just a very devastating experience for me that I faced at that point in my life. I remember just being like in this dark funk for months. And eventually I got to a point where I just hit rock bottom. I got to a point where the pain just hit a tipping point, and it forced me to look at myself in the mirror and just be honest with myself and have this moment of truth that, Stefan, you're unhappy, you're unfulfilled, you're alone, and just acknowledging all of that and all of that pain finally got me to a point to make a decision. I think people often, they don't make a decision until it gets to a point where it's so bad. Like if you're just comfortable in life, you're not really going to take action to the extent when your back's against the wall and you hit rock bottom. If you're in a relationship, it can be okay, but it's not until it gets so bad that one day you finally decide, I've got to end this relationship. Or you're in a job that's just okay, It's not until it gets so bad till you can't stand the sight of your boss. You can't stand going to work each day. You finally, that pain pushes you over the edge to finally make a decision to change. And for me, that was the moment. And that moment, I remember I used to play Diablo 2 and these different games. I remember I was able to sell my accounts. And I put all this, years worth of energy into building my characters and all that sort of stuff. I got rid of those, deleted all of that stuff from my computer, got rid of my TV, got rid of my PlayStation, all of that stuff. And I committed myself to self-development. And I basically took that obsession that I had for video games, that time, effort, energy I put into that. And I felt I was so behind because I was behind socially in my life because I didn't develop any social skills in high school because I was just playing video games all the time. So I felt behind compared to everyone else in school. And, for me, I just started reading books and getting to Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy and Wayne Dyer and all these different self-help speakers and influencers, and started going out to actually force myself to overcome my fears and approach strangers or do public speaking. I joined Toastmasters. I did acting classes, anything that I could grow and improve. And so I think the moments that moment changed my life more than anything. The pain that I had were just hitting rock bottom, just having that honest conversation with myself that forced me to make a decision to change my life and to actually do something with it. And for me, from that moment when I was 17, I never looked back. I've continued, I'm 32 now, and I've continued, over the last 15 years, growing every day, learning, reading, and, it's got me to where I am today. So I'm going to continue that journey for life.
Powerful. So what would 32-year-old Stefan James, 611,000 YouTube subscribers of Project Life Mastery and, multiple seven-figure personal brand, what would you tell that 17-year-old Stefan who's just struggling in that dark time playing video games?
I would have told myself that everything is just happening for a reason and a purpose. Everything that you're going through, that's just part of the journey. And, I knew I had to go through that to become the person that I am today. But I would have told myself, people ask what advice would I give to my younger self? I believe that who I am is a product of my environment. I'm a product of all the books that I've read, the coaches, the mentors, the courses, the seminars, my experiences and the pains that I've gone through, but how I've overcome that. And, if I were to go back, I would have done that even more than I do today. I did at the time. I would have, read more books. I would have studied more. I would have taken more actions, more risks, especially when you're young, because you can absorb those risks a lot more too, and they don't really matter as much, but just have more experiences. I think the more life experience that you go through, it just benefits you later in your life. So the more that I could have learned and grown, who knows where I'd be today. But, I really believe in that in a huge way, that you can shape yourself into becoming whoever you want to be, whatever life that you want to create. It just all starts with putting in the work to grow and improve and to be the best that you can be.
So if you were to give, some of your best advice for someone out there, and specifically, like, of course, any age, anybody can start an online business, anybody can change their life, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, doesn't matter how old you are, but specifically for someone who's between the ages of maybe 17, 18 to 24 right now, maybe they're in school and, maybe they're having this feeling of like, hey, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Like most people have that kind of feeling. I had this feeling. I was in school and I felt like I was just going, like digging a deeper and deeper hole for myself with the debt, with all that kind of stuff, because I knew that eventually I would have to get out of this, right? But I'm only doing this because I'm pressured. So what would be your greatest advice specifically to someone that's that age, and in that situation?
I think number one is getting clear on what you want for your life. Because I feel like there's a lot of kids going to school and they're just doing it because that's what they think is what they should do. They're influenced by their parents or their teachers, and they see their other, peers going to school and they feel like, they're kind of comparing themselves with them. And if I'm not going to school, then, what am I doing with my life or my future? So you've got to be very clear on what you really want, because as you mentioned, there's so many people that go to school and they end up getting in all this debt and they end up going in a totally different path in their life. Like I have so many friends, most of my friends that, gone to university and, got in $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 in debt, and they graduated and great, they've got a degree, but they're not doing anything with it because instead they decided they're not really passionate about that. They want to do something else instead.
$100,000.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get clear on that. And, you know, for me, when I was 18 years old, when I graduated high school, I'm really grateful that I didn't just go to university. I thought at the time I was going to be an architect because I was really good at drafting class in school. But I just knew that wasn't really my passion. I kind of felt a little bit lost at the time. And I decided just to take time off. I didn't just jump into university. I decided, you know what, I'm just going to take time off. I'm just going to work at different jobs and just gain experience and do some self-development and learn about myself so I can figure out, you know, what are my strengths and what do I want? And that's the great thing about self-development. You know, when you pick up these self-help books or you go to these seminars or events, they're going to ask you questions that are going to force you to think deep within yourself, to think about what you want, to think about what your strengths and your passions are. Because most people, you know, it's funny how people go to school and they don't even get any idea about who they really are. They're not even learning about themselves and what they truly want for themselves in their life. So, you know, one of my favorite things, I love to journal. I love to, you know, just go off and just imagine there's no limits and write out what I want my life to be, what I want it to look like, having a vision for my life and every aspect of my life. And I think that clarity really guides the decisions that I make today, because I really believe, and especially if you're in that age group, you know, you can achieve anything you want. You have time on your side. If you want to be a billionaire, you can achieve that. If you want to travel the world, if you want to retire by 30 years old or even younger than that, like there's so much that is possible. Anything is possible when you're starting that young. And so you really have an opportunity to design your life. You know, you can really design how you want your life to be and what you want it to look like. And I think once you get clear on that, you got to figure out the best path to get there. You know, what is the best path for you? And it might not be the best path or perfect path, because your path can always change as you go. But I think if you have an idea of a path and you get started on it, I think that's the most important thing, just getting started on that, learning, growing. And it might take you in, you know, different directions. You can modify or change the plan as you go. But, you know, I think it comes down to having a clear vision. And for me, I love taking it to another level, and I create a vision board, right, where I take inspirational images that I find on magazines or online, and I print it out and I have it so I can focus on it each day. I write out my vision of what I want that to be and look like, and I read it out loud. And I think that clarity really guides you a lot of the decisions that you make. Beyond that, you know, just, you know, kind of going through the buffet of life, you know, trying different things, gaining as much experience as you possibly can, you know, even with the online business world, because there's so many different online business models out there that exist that sometimes you don't really know whether or not you really like something or not until you do it, until you try it. And you're that young, you have the opportunity to try FBA, try YouTube, try blogging, try Facebook, try Instagram, and just, you know, try a lot of different things. And I think when you're doing that, you find one thing that you really enjoy and that really works for you. And then it kind of grows from there as well.
Yeah. And that's something that I emphasize so much on my channel, like decide what you want. And, you know, it's something that I had to struggle with, because when I finally forced myself to decide what I wanted in my life, that's when everything in my life changed. That's when I actually saw real progress in my life. And yeah, so it's been amazing. And one of the things that I've been meaning to ask you, and this is probably one of the last questions here, is, you know, it's a lot of work to do what you do, right? And creating content, and especially with such a huge audience, right? And you do it, you know, Stefan, like you do it not only with yourself, but also with Tatiana as well, right? And it's actually funny because I'm being interviewed by Tatiana in a couple of days here. I'm going to be traveling to Norway, but in 4 or 5 days. So I'm super excited about that as well. But are there things that you do where you can just get a break, where you just disconnect? Maybe, you know, for example, for me, you know, the past there was a time last week where I was 4 or 5 days just glued to my computer. And then one day, I love riding motorcycles. So one day I just rode out like 10 hours on my motorcycle into northern, like north of Vancouver here, like into the mountains. And I actually saw a grizzly bear. It was pretty cool. But yeah, so is there something like that you do to just, you know, go and just really like allow clarity in your mind, allow yourself to think? And
Yeah, I love getting out by nature. I love exercise and doing things that are physical. Meditation I enjoy also. There's some things that, certain shows that I might watch, or just kind of things just kind of disconnect my brain from things. Because as an entrepreneur, you're always, your brain can be very active and thinking a lot. But, I find travel has been my favorite outlet because, Tatiana and I, we just got back from a trip. We went to Greece and Dubai and Singapore and Amsterdam and traveled, all over. And, for me, I love to experience new things and be in different cultures, different environments. So for me, that's one of the best ways to disconnect. I try to always make sure that I have like a week off every 3 months where I just take my mind off of things. And it really allows me to get altitude on my life, get perspective on what's going on in my life and look at it from an outside view. But also kind of reignites that passion. And, for me right now, just because I got back from a long trip and I didn't do that much work when I was traveling, now I'm like on fire. Now I'm just like super excited, passionate, waking up early, staying up late at night, really immersed in what I love and what I'm doing. So for me, travel is probably the biggest thing that I do.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stefan. It's been an honor. And, like I said, for every single person watching and listening on the podcast or on the YouTube channel out there, I'm sure that you guys have gotten an insane amount of value, just like I did. This is actually the first time me and Stefan are speaking. So for me, this is like, as crazy as it is for everybody else listening, because like I said, Stefan has been one of the people that I just looked up to for so long that has really awakened my mind. And so thank you so much for coming on to the interview, for coming on the show.
Thank you, brother. No, appreciate it. Love what you're doing. Keep it up, man. And happy to be here, man, and to connect with you. And just want to wish you the best of luck.
Amazing. You as well. And so if people want to find Stefan, if you guys want to find, you guys can go and check out his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Project Life Mastery. And where else can they find you? Instagram, Project Life Mastery, Stefan James.
Instagram, Facebook. Yep.
So all the links are going to be right down below. So hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, mine and Stefan's as well, if you guys aren't already, for some amazing value, amazing content. Hope to see you guys again soon.